What's up, everyone? This is Tatum, and welcome to my most controversial segment, Not a Classic, where I'm going to be discussing some of hip hop's favorite albums and see if they really stand the test of time. Now, today, I'm going to talk about Ludacris back for the first time.
We drop bows on them, drop bows on them, win.
I chose back for the first time because, oddly, we're approaching the 20-year anniversary of it, and it blew my mind to think that this album was 20 years old. Like, I remember vividly at 10 years old, 10 going on 11, and Wish Your Fantasy came out, and I recorded it on a fucking tape from the radio, and I played it in my mom's car, and she was like, what the fuck is this? Like, cut this shit off. Like, you should not be listening to songs like this at 10 years old. But that's one of my memories I hold with this album that I'll probably never forget. But I wanted to see if this album stood the test of time. Like, I know it's considered a hip hop classic. It's Ludacris's first album, first commercial album. So I went back to it and I revisited it, and I just wanted to see if it held up. So let's get into it. Man, this album just shows how good Ludacris was in his prime. Like, it has the makings of like all the charismatic shit, the fast rhyme patterns, just the punchlines, the metaphors, like all this showed like why Ludacris is Ludacris and why he should be held to a great standard, and he is held to a great standard in hip hop. But this album really showed me like, wow, Ludacris was fucking amazing in his prime. You know what I mean? And going through it, it hit me like I was thinking, if you didn't grow up in this era that the album came out in, would you appreciate it now? I would love to like play it for a younger audience just to see how they would react to it, because it sounds like 2000. Like, it, for lack of better words, it sounds like 2000. Like, it just sounds like 2000. And most of the songs that were on Ludacris's Back for the First Time were actually on his, I guess you would call it his demo, Incognito, like, which, propelled him to get signed by Def Jam South, Scarface, and things of that nature. But most of the songs, like pretty much all the songs except probably like 2 or 3, were already on his other album, you know what I mean? His demo tape. So for a lot of people, they probably heard these songs multiple times, especially in Atlanta or in the South. They probably heard these songs multiple times before the global world heard it, you know what I mean? So it was another thing I was thinking about when I went back to it. And, I kind of miss that southern sound of the early 2000s, where it wasn't so trapped out yet. Like, it was bass heavy, but it wasn't so you know how 808s are just like crazy now, but it wasn't all the way there yet. It still had that, I can't describe, that Ludacris sound, that T.I., just that early 2000s southern rap sound, that crunk sound, that Little John sound you can hear in there, that Pastor Troy sound you can hear. I really, when listening to it, it reminded me of that, and it was very nostalgic, and it just made me like miss that time and how that sounded back then. So another thing I noticed when listening to this album is that how rappers used to really care about sequencing and packaging albums. It was great to hear albums with skits again. You don't really get those anymore. Like, I really love the one leading into You a Hoe. I forgot You's a Hoe was on this album. Like, that was one of the songs I remember. Sorry, Mom. But we would listen to that in elementary. Like, somebody had the Ludacris tape and CD, and that was one of the ones. Obviously, we gravitated to that because You's a Hoe. You know what I mean? Another thing I would like to add, yeah, I'm talking about how, how silly his rhyme patterns were and how animated his videos were, but don't get it twisted. Ludacris was actually murdering shit, and it was still an era where Southern rappers were looked down upon. So Ludacris was one of those first, I would say probably of the early 2000s Southern rappers who came in with the flag of lyrics. Like, you got to think, it was the Lil Jon era, it was the crunk era, it was before the snap music era, but it was still, people looked at Southern music, Atlanta, like dancing, you know what I mean? So Ludacris fucking put his stake in hip hop and showed you, hey, he was signed to fucking Def Jam. Like, let's not forget, at this time, Def Jam was still was still like the shit. You know what I mean? Especially when it came to hip hop. So, and it gets signed by Scarface. I mean, that's pretty dope. I remember Ludacris being in one of those artists that I would rush home to see on 106 in Park at TRL. I remember the videos when him hanging down from the fucking upside down in the street with the bush. That shit was with himself on his shirt, but right side, man, it was just a fucking dope visual that, for introduction to an artist, I think visuals are very important. You know what I mean? Even with your fantasy, I was like, who the fuck is this guy with the sideburns and cornrows? I thought that was cool. I really thought that was cool. I love how, like I said, he had Pastor Troy on here. I love how he had the UGK record. Who else? 3 6 Mafia. And a bunch of people from DTP was all flooded through this album, which kind of like it kind of tainted it for me. Like I want to hear just Ludacris. Like, since it's your debut, I would love to hear just Ludacris. But it was kind of guest filled. Like, so that kind of brought it down for me. But yeah, I love to hear, like, man, you're never gonna hear UGK, 3 6 Mafia, Pastor Troy all on the same album again. Like, it's just never gonna happen. And it was really just good to hear that. You know what I mean? Some of my favorite songs on this album, obviously, Southern Hospitality, Stick 'Em Up. When I hear Stick 'Em Up, that shit that's that 2000 Southern sound, that crunk shit, I'm fucking niggas up in the club type of music that I miss. So Stick 'Em Up is definitely one of my favorites, and What's Your Fantasy, obviously. Probably my worst song that I didn't like was Catch Up. I didn't really like that song. It didn't age well for me at all. Favorite verse, oddly, it was a guy on there. I didn't even know who he was. His name was Four Eyes, and it was Mouthing Off. It was like a freestyle kind of song, and I just loved this verse. It really caught my attention. I also love Bum B's verse on Stick 'Em Up. Also one of my favorites. Now, before I say this, go hit that subscribe button, that like button. Get your comments ready. Hit me on my social media. LifeAsTatum on all platforms. All right. When it comes to Ludacris back for the first time, it's drum rolls playing right now. I'm just giving it time to breathe. When it comes to Ludacris back for the first time, it is not a classic. I'm sorry, Ludacris fans, hip hop fans all over the world. Oh shit, I'm knocking down papers. It kind of broke my heart that it wasn't a classic. It's still great. It's still great. Ludacris is rapping his ass off. It just, like I said, it's a great introduction to Ludacris. It shows me the potential he could have and what he did reach and exceed. It kind of leaves me wanting more. Like, I see the potential in him. I see the potential in the music. I see the potential in the video. I see all the potential. I just don't think I don't know. Compared to his following album, like Word of Mouth and Chicken and Beer, I just don't think it holds up against those. You know what I mean? I love Back for the First Time, but it just don't hold up 20 years later. Some songs, like I think What's Your Fantasy and Southern Hospitality, yeah, it's some songs, but for the most part, it just don't hold up 20 years later, which is, it's cool, but it's still a great album. We still should be celebrating the 20-year anniversary of another hip-hop album, of a hip-hop great first album. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm sorry, Ludacris. I'm sorry, Ludacris fans. Back for the First Time is just not a classic. Don't at me.